Young billionaire leaves the hospital in tears because his wife is in a coma, until a street girl approaches him and says, "Sir, I know how to save your wife." He is stunned. The smell of the hospital clung to his clothes. Ethan Hayes checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes and adjusted his silk tie. The white, odd, impersonal hallway of the hospital already felt like a second home after months of coming and going. Mr. Hayes, a doctor in a white coat with dark circles under her eyes, approached him. "May we talk about your wife's condition?" Ethan nodded, bracing himself for yet another technical report on Claire's coma. "There haven't been any significant changes," said the doctor, flipping through the chart. "Her vital signs are stable, but brain activity remains minimal. What about the new treatment I suggested? That specialist from Switzerland?" "Mr. Hayes," the doctor interrupted gently, "we've already discussed this. Even the most advanced experimental treatments don't show promising results for cases like your wife's." Ethan felt a tightening in his chest. He wasn't used to hearing no as an answer. In his world, everything had a price. He just had to find out what it was. "How much?" he asked abruptly. "I'm sorry, how much would it cost to bring in that specialist?" "I can pay double, triple what he asks." The doctor shook her head. "It's not a matter of money, Mr. Hayes." For the first time in his life, Ethan Hayes faced a problem his financial empire couldn't solve. He entered the room and looked at Claire, lying motionless on the bed. Her face, once animated and full of life, now appeared serene and still. The machines around her beeped steadily, the only sign that there was still life within that body. Ethan sat in the chair by the bed and took Claire's cold hand. For 3 months, he had repeated the same ritual. Come in, sit down, hold her hand, talk about business and leave, as if following a schedule. "The doctors remain pessimistic," he said, looking at his wife's still face. "They say there isn't much else that can be done." He paused, trying to find the right words. He'd always been good with words in business meetings, but in this room, in front of Claire, he felt lost. I'm tired, Claire." A nurse knocked on the door and came in. "Mr. Hayes, I need to check her vitals." Ethan stood up. "Of course. Are you leaving already?" asked the nurse, noticing he was picking up his coat. "Yes, I have an important meeting." The excuse slipped out automatically. In truth, there was no meeting. For the first time since the accident, Ethan left the hospital without planning to return. In the elevator, he felt the weight of defeat. He, who always got what he wanted, was now powerless. Claire was slipping through his fingers, and not all the billions in the world could bring her back. The night air hit him as he walked out the hospital doors. It was drizzling, and the city lights reflected in the puddles of the parking lot. Ethan loosened his tie, feeling suffocated. It wasn't just the tie, it was everything. The life he had built, the empire he had created. What was it all worth now? "Sir?" Ethan barely heard the small voice amid the city noise. He looked down and saw a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. She wore worn-out clothes, far too big for her thin frame. Her bare feet were dirty with mud. "Sir," she repeated, reaching out and touching his coat sleeve. Ethan's first instinct was to pull away. He'd grown up in a city big enough to learn to ignore beggars. He reached for his wallet, ready to hand her some money and end this. "I don't need money," the girl said, as if reading his thoughts. "I know how to save your wife." Ethan froze, his wallet suspended halfway out of his pocket. "What?" "Your wife, the one who's asleep in there. I know how to wake her up." How do you know about my wife?" Ethan looked around, suspicious. Was this some kind of scam, someone trying to extort him in a moment of weakness? The girl smiled. It was a strange smile for a street child, confident, almost wise. "She has a lovely smile," the girl said. "A smile that starts on the right corner and then spreads, like she's about to tell a secret." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. That was exactly how Claire smiled. Something he had always noticed, something that had always enchanted him. An intimate detail he had never shared with anyone. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. "My name is Lily," the girl replied, extending her dirty hand in a formal handshake, oddly out of place with her small figure. "And I can help you, if you trust me." Ethan looked at that outstretched hand. On any other day, he would have turned his back. But today was not just any day. Today was the day he had given up on Claire, the day he had failed. "My name is Ethan," he said, shaking Lily's tiny hand. And in that handshake, something shifted in the night air, as if the universe paused to witness the start of something important, something neither of them could foresee. "You need to come with me," Lily said, tugging gently on Ethan's coat sleeve. "Please." Ethan looked at the barefoot girl, then at his car parked a few steps away, and then back at the hospital behind him. The drizzle was starting to turn into heavier rain. "Look, I can take you to a shelter or call social services," he offered, feeling uneasy. "Dad's getting late and—" "No!" Lily recoiled as if she'd been shocked. "No social services, they'll send me back." "Back where?" "To the place I'm going to show you," she answered. "You'll understand when we get there. It's about your wife." Ethan hesitated. Part of him wanted to get in his car and go home, have a drink, and forget this day. But another part, the part that wasn't ready to give up on Claire, wanted to believe this strange child who knew things she shouldn't know. "And if I don't go?" he asked. Lily shrugged, a strangely adult gesture for someone so small. "Then your wife will keep sleeping." Ethan let out a deep sigh. "All right, we'll go by car." "No," Lily insisted. "We have to walk." "Walk?" "But it's raining and you're barefoot." "I'm used to it," she answered simply. "This way." Before he could protest again, Lily was already walking away. Ethan looked up at the sky, feeling the rain on his face, and followed her. They left the well-lit area around the hospital and entered streets Ethan had never walked through. Tall buildings gave way to modest houses, which in turn gave way to run-down structures. The smell of cheap food and uncollected trash hit his nostrils. "Do you live around here?" Ethan asked, trying not to step in the puddles. "I live everywhere," Lily replied, "and nowhere." As they walked on, Ethan felt eyes following them from the shadows. His expensive suit and Italian shoes marked him as an outsider in this environment. Instinctively, he reached for the pocket where he kept his wallet. "No one's going to rob you," Lily said, noticing the gesture. "Not when they see me with you." "They know you. Everybody knows everybody here." After about 20 minutes, they stopped in front of a large Victorian building. Once majestic, it now had broken windows and graffiti covering its facade. A crooked iron gate stood ajar, and a faded sign was still visible: St. Hope Orphanage. "This is it," Lily announced. "An abandoned orphanage. What does that have to do with Claire?" Lily didn't answer. She simply pushed open the gate and walked in. Ethan, now completely soaked by the rain, reluctantly followed her. The inside of the building was a bizarre contrast between ruin and life. Cracked walls and broken floors mingled with children's drawings taped here and there. Some rooms still had furniture, as if the place had been abandoned in a hurry. "Does anyone still live here?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing through the empty corridors. "Just ghosts," Lily answered. "And me, sometimes." She led him to what looked like it had once been a recreation room. A mural covered one wall, full of children's drawings and magazine clippings. Lily pointed to one drawing in particular. That one was done by her. Ethan approached. It was a simple drawing. A smiling sun, a green field, and 3 stick figures, a man, a woman, and a child. In the lower corner was an unmistakable signature: "With love, Claire." "My wife," Ethan murmured, touching the drawing with his fingertips. "She was here?" "Twice a week," said a voice behind them. "For almost a year." Ethan turned and saw an elderly woman standing in the doorway. Her grey hair was tied in a messy bun, and she leaned on a cane. "Mrs. Martha," Lily exclaimed, running to hug the woman. "Lily, my angel," the older woman said, stroking the girl's wet hair. "You disappeared again." "I brought Mr. Hayes," Lily explained, pointing to Ethan. "He's Mrs. Claire's husband." Mrs. Martha looked him up and down. "So you're the famous Ethan Hayes. Claire used to talk about you." "Who are you?" Ethan asked, confused. "And how do you know my wife?" "I was the administrator of this orphanage for 30 years, she replied. "Until the funding ran out and we had to close. Claire showed up one day wanting to volunteer. She said she needed something meaningful in her life. Ethan felt as though he'd been punched. Claire had never mentioned an orphanage, volunteer work, or children. She never told me about this. She tried, Mrs. Martha said gently. Many times she invited you to come, but you were always busy. One day she brought your picture to show the children. Lily memorized your face. Ethan looked at Lily, who was now rummaging through a box of broken toys in the corner of the room. Why didn't she tell me how important it was to her? Mrs. Martha sighed. Claire believed you'd figure it out on your own when you were ready to see beyond your world. They went to a small kitchen in the back of the building where Mrs. Martha still kept a few supplies. While she made tea, Lily sat down next to Ethan at an old table, its surface worn by time. I was born here, Lily said suddenly, or at least someone left me here when I was a baby. I never knew who my parents were. She was left at the door, wrapped in a blue blanket, Mrs. Martha added, serving tea in chipped mugs. No note, no nothing. Mrs. Martha took care of me, Lily continued. She took care of all of us. We were a family. What happened to the other children? Ethan asked. When the orphanage closed, they were placed in other institutions, Mrs. Martha replied, sitting down with difficulty. I tried to keep in touch, but, well, bureaucracy isn't kind to the old and poor. And Lily, she was assigned to a temporary home but ran away the night before the transfer, the older woman sighed. I was admitted to the hospital soon after due to a stroke and was away for weeks. When I came back, Lily had disappeared for good until now. I didn't want to go, Lily said with a shrug. I didn't want to be away from the only family I've known. Right after that, I had a stroke, Mrs. Martha continued. I was hospitalized for weeks. When I returned, Lily was long gone. I've come here every day hoping to find her. Ethan looked at the child in front of him, so small, so fragile, yet so strong, living on the streets, sleeping in abandoned buildings, running from the police and social services, and despite all that, worrying about a stranger in a coma. Claire came every week, Lily said, stirring her tea. She read us stories, brought snacks, taught us to draw. When Mrs. Martha got sick, she cried a lot. That was the last time I saw her, Mrs. Martha said. She promised she would try to help somehow, said she'd convince her husband to do something. And then I learned about the accident on the news. Ethan felt tears forming in his eyes. Claire had tried to share this part of her life with him, and he'd been too busy to notice. I could have helped, he murmured. I could have done something. You still can, Lily said, touching his hand. That's why I brought you here, to show you the Claire I knew. She once told me you had a good heart, but you just needed to remember where you'd put it. Something inside Ethan broke at that moment. It wasn't just guilt or regret, but a growing certainty that he needed to protect this child, not just for Claire, but for himself. I'm going to help you, he said at last. I'll do whatever it takes. Lily's smile lit up the dark kitchen, and for an instant Ethan saw a resemblance to Claire's smile, not in form, but in purity. And for the first time in months, he felt hope. The rain had stopped when Ethan and Lily left the orphanage. Mrs. Martha insisted the girl stay with her, but Lily was resolute. I need to help, Mr. Ethan, the girl said with the stubbornness only children can display. On the way back, Ethan called his driver. He couldn't let Lily walk barefoot through those wet streets again. When the luxurious black car pulled up to the curb, Lily hesitated. I've never ridden in a car like this, she admitted. There's a first time for everything, Ethan replied, opening the door for her. The girl got in carefully, as if she were afraid of breaking something. Her dirty feet contrasted with the immaculate leather seats. Ethan noticed her trying to keep her feet off the floor. You can relax, he said. It's just a car. It's the nicest car I've ever seen, she replied, still tense. That was when Ethan realized what was just a car to him was extraordinary to Lily, like many other things he took for granted. Where to, sir? Asked the driver. Ethan hesitated. His penthouse apartment didn't seem suitable for a child, especially one who had been living on the streets. But he couldn't just abandon her. Home, James, he finally answered. During the ride, he watched Lily pressing her face against the window, enchanted by the city lights. Her eyes sparkled at each new building, each brightly lit shop window. For him, This urban landscape was just the usual route home. For her, it was a world of wonders. Claire would react like that whenever she saw something beautiful, Ethan commented, almost to himself. Lily turned to him. She showed me a photo of the place you went on your honeymoon, a beach with very blue water. She said you refused to take off your shoes and walk in the sand. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. That trip to the Maldives. Claire had begged for those few days of rest, and he had spent half of it on the phone, closing deals. There was too much sand, he replied, trying to sound casual. I'm not a big fan of the beach. Mrs. Clare said you didn't like it because you didn't know how to enjoy it, Lily said. She said you were always in too much of a rush to feel the good things. Lily's words hit him like a punch, so Claire really saw him that way, someone incapable of appreciating the simple things in life. They arrived at Ethan's building, one of the most exclusive in the city. The doorman's eyes widened at the sight of the ragged little girl, but a stern look from Ethan was enough to stop any questions. In the elevator, Lily was fascinated by the illuminated buttons. Do people live on all these floors? Yes, Ethan replied, but only one family per floor. They're big apartments, bigger than the orphanage. Some of them, maybe. Lily shook her head, as if the idea was incomprehensible. When they entered Ethan's apartment, the girl's reaction was absolute astonishment. The place was huge, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. The decor was minimalist and expensive, featuring designer furniture and contemporary artwork on the walls. You live here by yourself? Lily asked, standing at the entrance as though afraid to step forward. Now I do, Ethan replied. Claire and I used to live here together. Lily walked around the apartment, looking at everything with curiosity, but not touching anything. She stopped in front of a framed photo. Ethan and Claire on their wedding day. He looked as serious as ever in his immaculate tuxedo. She was radiant in a simple dress, with that smile that started on the right corner of her lips. Was she happy here? Lily asked, still gazing at the photo. The question caught Ethan off guard. Was Claire happy? He had always assumed so. After all, he'd given her everything money could buy, but now, after discovering the orphanage, he wasn't sure anymore. I think so, he answered, uncertain. At least at first. Lily turned to him with that penetrating look that seemed far older than her 5 years. Mrs. Clare told me you once danced in the rain the day you got engaged. Ethan blinked, surprised. She told you that? She said it was the only time she really saw you laugh without caring about anything. No watch, no phone, just the two of you. The memory came rushing back. A walk in the park that turned into a dash for shelter from a sudden rain. Claire pulling him out from under the awning, spinning with her arms open, daring him to join her. And he, in a rare moment of abandon, had said yes. Dancing awkwardly, soaking wet, both of them laughing like children. He had asked Claire to marry him right then, seeing her with raindrops on her lashes and that irresistible smile. That was a long time ago, Ethan murmured. Did you forget how to dance in the rain? The innocent question carried a weight that rendered him momentarily speechless. Yes, he had forgotten. He'd forgotten so many things. We need some clothes for you, he said, changing the subject. And a warm bath. Later, after a startled housekeeper provided clean clothes and prepared a room for Lily, Ethan sat alone in the living room with an untouched drink in his hand. In the guest room, Lily slept soundly, exhausted after her first hot bath in weeks. Ethan picked up his phone and scrolled through the photos. There were few of him and Claire. Usually he was the one taking the pictures, or they were at events with other people. But there was one that always intrigued him. Claire sitting on the windowsill of this same apartment, watching the rain fall. She hadn't known he was taking the photo. Her profile was serene, almost melancholic. What had she been thinking at that moment? Was she remembering their dance in the rain? Was she wishing he were different? Ethan went over to the window and looked out at the city. For years, this view represented achievement, each building a landmark of success, each light a reminder of the empire he had built. But now, for the first time, he felt small in its vastness, and alone, terribly alone. High-school Ituapamak the following days introduced an entirely new routine for Ethan. Lily woke up early, and found him already working in his office. He tried to stick to his normal schedule, but the presence of the girl changed everything. "Why do you work so much?" she asked on the morning of the third day, watching him answer emails. "It's what I do," he replied. "It's how I get the things I have." "But you already have so many things," Lily said, with a child's simple logic. "Why do you need more?" Ethan had no answer. He had never questioned his work ethic or ambition. He always wanted more money, more power, more success. "But why? Let's go out for a bit," he suggested, closing his laptop. He was surprised to realize he couldn't remember the last time he had taken a morning off, just because he wanted to. He took Lily to a department store and bought her decent clothes. The girl was overwhelmed by all the options. While she tried on colorful dresses, Ethan realized he was smiling, a genuine smile he hadn't worn in months. "Do you like this one?" he asked when she stepped out of the dressing room in a blue dress. "It's too pretty for me," Lily replied, running her hands over the delicate fabric. "Nothing is too pretty for you," Ethan said, surprised by the sincerity in his own voice. After shopping, they strolled through the park. It was a weekday, and most people were at work. Under normal circumstances, Ethan would have been in important meetings, closing deals. Instead, he was watching Lily feed ducks in the pond. "Mrs. Clare liked coming here," Lily said, tossing bits of bread to the eager ducks. "She said you used to have picnics here." "Early in our relationship," Ethan confirmed. "Then we got too busy." "Too busy for picnics?" The question was innocent, but loaded with meaning. Ethan sat down on a nearby bench. "I guess so. I was building my company, and Claire, well, I think Claire tried to keep up with my pace for a while, until she found the orphanage. Maybe." Ethan looked up at the partly cloudy sky. "I never asked what drew her there. I always thought her charitable activities were just hobbies." Lily joined him on the bench, her feet barely touching the ground. She said helping people made her feel truly useful. She said she wanted more than charity galas and magazine photos. Ethan felt the weight of those words. Claire had tried to explain that to him countless times, but he never really listened. He'd always praised her charity work, but deep down saw it as a socialite pastime, nothing truly serious. "She wanted to have children," Ethan murmured, recalling another conversation they'd brushed aside. "I always said it wasn't the right time." Lily looked at him with those penetrating eyes again. "When is the right time?" The question went unanswered. Ethan realized he'd postponed the idea of having kids, not because of a lack of time or money, but because he was scared. Scared of not knowing how to be a father, of not balancing work and family, of disappointing a child the way he had, without noticing. Disappointed Claire. "Let's get some ice cream," Lily suggested suddenly, jumping off the bench. "Now." "Before lunch." "Why not?" Her smile was contagious. Mrs. Clare said rules exist to be broken once in a while. Contrary to his methodical nature, Ethan agreed. They walked to a small ice cream shop, where Lily ordered the biggest sundae on the menu. Ethan only asked for a coffee. "Aren't you going to have ice cream?" Lily asked, already with chocolate at the corner of her mouth. "I'm not much of a sweets person." "Never?" "Rarely." Lily pushed the sundae toward him. "Try it. It's the best ice cream in the world." Reluctantly, Ethan took a small spoonful. The sweet flavor burst in his mouth, awakening childhood memories, hot summers, laughter, simplicity. When was the last time he'd let himself enjoy something so simple without worrying about calories or meetings? "Good, isn't it?" Lily asked, her eyes shining in anticipation. "It is," Ethan admitted, taking another spoonful. "It's really good." They returned home in the late afternoon. As Ethan made Lily a snack in the kitchen, a first for him, he received a call from his assistant reminding him of an important meeting he had missed. "You should have told me earlier," Ethan replied, irritated. "Reschedule for next week." "But sir, it's about the acquisition." "I said reschedule." Ethan hung up, surprised at his own decision. When he walked into the living room with the sandwiches, he found Lily gazing at the framed picture of him and Claire. "You both look different in the photos," she observed. "Different how?" "You look more serious, and Mrs. Clare looks less bright." The observation was surprisingly perceptive. In the photos, they were always posing. He, the successful businessman; she, the perfect wife. social masks that had, over time, become more real than their true selves. They sat at the kitchen table to eat, another new habit for Ethan Weiss, who usually ate alone or in fancy restaurants with clients. "Are you going to visit Mrs. Clare today?" Lily asked, chewing her sandwich. Ethan froze. He hadn't returned to the hospital since the day he found Lily. Guilt washed over him like a wave. "Yes," he replied. "We're going to visit her." Lily's eyes lit up. "Can I come too?" "Of course. Didn't you say you knew how to help her?" The girl's smile lit up the kitchen. That was when Ethan realized he had gone the entire day without thinking about business, checking the stock market, or making a single work call. And, surprisingly, he didn't feel the usual anxiety or the constant need to be in control. For the first time in years, he was simply living in the moment, and it was all thanks to a little orphan who had appeared in his life like an unlikely angel, reminding him of the man he used to be, the man Claire had fallen in love with. As he watched Lily finish her snack, Ethan made a silent promise to himself and to Claire. If there was any chance, however small, to bring his wife back, he would do everything differently this time. And he would start by valuing the little things, which he now realized were the most important of all. A month had passed since Ethan met Lily outside the hospital, a month of transformation, discoveries, and pain. Claire remained in a coma, with no sign of improvement. But something had changed, not in her, but in him. In his office, Ethan looked out the window while his lawyers explained the details of his new project. He was no longer the same man obsessed with numbers and deadlines. He listened attentively to every detail, asking questions he would once have dismissed as irrelevant. "So it's settled," he concluded, turning to face his team. "We'll purchase the property next to St. Hope Orphanage and begin construction immediately." "Mr. Hayes," one of the lawyers interjected, adjusting his glasses nervously, "I understand your urgency, but perhaps we should consider other locations. That area isn't exactly upscale." "That's exactly why it has to be there," Ethan replied firmly. "The children are there. We're not going to build another charitable project in a wealthy neighborhood just for sponsors to take pictures at galas." His decisive tone silenced any further arguments. The lawyers exchanged glances, but knew that once Ethan Hayes made a decision, it was best not to oppose him. "The Clare Hayes Community Center will open in 6 months, Ethan continued. "Not a year, not 8 months, 6 months. I want a team working around the clock if necessary." When everyone left, Ethan remained alone in the office. He took out the drawing Lily had made with Claire, the 3 stick figures representing a family. It was no longer just a childish dream or a lost promise. It was now a plan, a purpose. In recent days, he had understood something fundamental. His love for Claire couldn't be limited to hospital visits and tears of regret. It had to become action, a continuation of what she believed in, what she valued. The intercom beeped, interrupting his thoughts. "Mr. Hayes, Lily and Mrs. Martha are here," announced his secretary. "Send them in," he replied, putting the drawing away and straightening his tie. Lily ran in, her eyes bright with excitement. She was no longer the frightened, dirty child he'd found weeks ago. She wore a clean blue dress, and her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail. Mrs. Martha followed, walking slowly with her cane. "You said there was a surprise," Lily exclaimed, hopping around Ethan's desk. "I do," he said, smiling, "but we need to pick up Claire first." Lily's smile wavered for a moment. Did she wake up?" The hope in her voice squeezed Ethan's heart. "No, sweetie, but that doesn't mean she can't come along." The routine at the hospital had become familiar. The head nurse, who used to look at them warily, now greeted them with a warm smile. They'd become part of the scenery, as constant as the medical equipment itself. In the room, Claire remained unmoving, her face as serene as ever. Ethan leaned over and kissed her forehead. "Hey, honey," he whispered. "I brought Lily and Mrs. Martha. We have a surprise for you." He took a Polaroid camera he had brought and snapped a photo of Claire. Then he took pictures of Lily, Mrs. Martha, and himself. "What are you doing?" Lily asked, curious. "You'll see," Ethan replied, carefully stashing the photos away. The car stopped in front of a large vacant lot next to St. Hope Orphanage. A huge sign announced, Future site of the Clare Hayes Community Centre opening in 6 months. Architects and construction workers were already busy surveying the site, preparing the ground. "What is this?" Lily asked, peering out of the car window, eyes wide. "Come see," Ethan said, opening the door and helping Mrs. Martha step out. They walked over to a makeshift table where blueprints and models were laid out. Ethan knelt to meet Lily's gaze. "This will be a place for kids like you," he explained. "It will have classrooms, a library, medical offices, and a big yard to play in. Kids can come after school to do activities, get help with homework, or just have a safe place to be." Lily's eyes traveled over the models, trying to absorb what she was seeing. "And the best part," Ethan continued, "is that Mrs. Martha will be the director. She'll help choose the staff and take care of everything." "Mrs." Martha pressed her trembling hand against Ethan's arm. "I never thought I'd see something like this in my lifetime." Ethan smiled at her. "Claire would have insisted on it. No one better than you to continue what she started." He took the photos he'd snapped at the hospital out of his pocket and placed them in a small metal box. "This is our time capsule," he explained to Lily. "We're going to bury it in the building's foundation. That way Claire will always be here, even when she can't be physically." Lily looked at the photos, then at the drawing Ethan had added to the box. "Will Mrs. Clare wake up one day to see this?" she asked, her voice small and hopeful. Ethan felt a knot in his throat. He wanted to lie and say yes. It was just a matter of time. But he had promised himself never to live in illusions again. "I don't know, Lily," he answered honestly. "The doctors say the chances are small, but I do know that, awake or not, Claire will be with us through what we build here." He handed Lily a little shovel. "Want to help me bury our time capsule?" Together, they dug a small hole near where the center's main entrance would be. Lily placed the box carefully at the bottom of the hole and, with the same seriousness, covered it with soil. "When the building is finished," Ethan said, "we'll put up a plaque here saying that Clare Hayes is present in every brick, every smile, and every child who walks through these doors." Lily looked at the small mound of dirt, then at the vacant lot around them, and finally at Ethan. Then, like the sun rising after a long winter night, a smile appeared on her face. Not the cautious, guarded smile she sometimes gave, but a genuine one, full of hope and possibility. "It's like having a piece of her with us all the time, isn't it?" Lily asked. Ethan nodded, unable to speak past the emotion tightening his throat. In that moment, he realized this was not a farewell, it was a new beginning. It was the continuation of the story Claire had started, a love story that transcended hospitals, machines, and grim diagnoses. As he watched Lily run around the lot, imagining where the playground would be, Ethan felt a peace he hadn't experienced in a long time. His love for Claire hadn't diminished. It had transformed into something bigger, something that could touch more lives than just his own. This was Claire's true legacy, not the sadness of loss, but the joy of moving forward. And somehow, Ethan knew that wherever she was, she would be smiling. The hospital felt different now. The same white walls, the same sterile corridors, but Ethan saw them with new eyes. For weeks, this place had been an enemy, a prison holding Claire away from him. Now, as he walked with Lily by his side, he realized the true prison had been built by himself, brick by brick, with his indifference and obsession with work. "I'm not authorized to let a child in," said the nurse at the ICU reception, eyeing Lily with distrust. "Family members only." "She is family," Ethan replied firmly. Something in his tone made the nurse reconsider. She glanced at the documents on her desk and then at the two of them. 15 minutes, she finally conceded. "And don't touch the equipment." Lily clung tightly to Ethan's hand as they walked to Claire's room. Before entering, he knelt to meet the girl's eye level. "She's sleeping," he explained gently, "and there are a lot of machines connected to her. It might look scary, but they're helping her breathe and checking her heart." Lily nodded, her face serious. "I know. I've seen sick people before." That simple statement, said with such naturalness, reminded Ethan of all the child had endured in her short life. He felt ashamed of his own weakness. When they entered the room, Ethan felt the familiar impact. Claire, motionless on the bed, surrounded by machines, the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor punctuating the silence. But for the first time, he saw past the tragedy. He saw the woman he loved, not just a body in a coma. Lily let go of his hand and approached the bed slowly. She studied Claire for a moment, her eyes taking in the pale face and the hair spread across the pillow. "She's thinner," the girl noted softly. Ethan was surprised. It was true. Claire had lost weight over the months. He hadn't noticed, so wrapped up was he in his own anguish. How could Lily, who had seen her only a few times, notice something he hadn't? "Yes," he agreed, stepping closer. "I think she is." Lily reached out and very gently touched Claire's fingers. "Her nails are different too. She always had them painted in pretty colors." Another accurate observation. Claire loved changing her nail polish frequently, something Ethan used to dismiss as frivolous. Now her nails were uncolored, trimmed short by some practical nurse. Ethan sat in the chair by the bed, the same one he had occupied for months. He used to sit upright, talking to Claire as if at a business meeting, updates on his day, information about mutual friends, news from the outside world. Never really talking with her, just talking at her. "What should I say?" he asked Lily, suddenly unsure. The girl shrugged. What would you say if she could answer? The question caught him off guard. What would he say to Claire if she could truly respond? It wouldn't be about stock updates or project timelines. It wouldn't be about gossip or impersonal news. Sensing his hesitation, Lily added, "Mrs. Clare always talked about your smile. The real one, not the one you show important people." Ethan took Claire's hand in his. It was cold, but not lifeless. He could feel the faint pulse beneath her delicate skin. "Claire," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's me, Ethan. You're Ethan, not the executive, not the businessman, just me." He paused, feeling the words form not in his calculating mind, but somewhere deeper, somewhere he had ignored for too long. "I miss you," he went on, his voice cracking. "Not just in our home or our bed. I miss your gaze, Ma, the way you saw the world, the way you saw me." Lily sat silently on the floor, hugging her knees, watching. "I found out about the orphanage," Ethan continued. "I met Mrs. Martha and, well, I met Lily." He glanced at the girl. "She's amazing, Claire. So strong, so wise for someone so small. Now I understand why you cared so much about her, about all those kids." Tears began rolling down his face, but he didn't bother to hide them. There was no need for masks anymore. "You tried to show me what really mattered, and I didn't listen. I was too busy building an empire that means nothing without you to share it." His voice gave out, and he needed a few moments to steady himself. Lily stood and placed a small hand on his shoulder, a comforting gesture that surprised him with its maturity. "Remember when we danced in the rain the day I asked you to marry me? I was drenched, my watch got ruined, and I didn't care at all. That was one of the happiest days of my life, and I didn't realize when I started letting moments like that slip away." Ethan leaned over and kissed Claire's forehead gently. "I want to dance in the rain with you again, honey. I want to have all those picnics I postponed. I want to know the woman who found time to care for orphaned children while I was too busy counting money." Lily approached the bed and hesitantly asked, "Can I tell her a story? Mrs. Clare always told us stories." Ethan nodded, wiping his tears. Lily sat on the edge of the bed and began a simple tale about a little bird who couldn't fly but found its courage when it had to save a friend. Her childish voice filled the room with an innocence that contrasted with the seriousness of the situation. As the girl spoke, Ethan kept holding Claire's hand, stroking it gently. Something had changed within him. Visiting the hospital was no longer an obligation, an empty ritual. It was an act of genuine love, a reconnection with the woman who had chosen to share her life with him. When their time was up and the nurse came in to let them know, Ethan leaned down and whispered in Claire's ear, "I'll be back tomorrow, and the day after, and every day, until you open your eyes. I promise I'll be a better man when that happens." He kept his promise. In the days that followed, Ethan completely reorganized his life. He delegated responsibilities at work, cancelled non-essential meetings, and split his time between caring for Lily and visiting Claire. At each visit, he brought something meaningful. A flower from the park they used to visit, an old photo he'd found in a forgotten box, a song that played when they first met. And he spoke to Claire differently, honestly, vulnerably, presently. Lily accompanied him almost every time. The girl had a special way of talking to Claire, as if she were absolutely sure Claire could hear her. She'd talk about her day, about new things she was learning, about how Ethan was teaching her to ride a bike. But after 2 weeks, nothing changed. The doctors remained skeptical. The tests showed no change in Claire's brain activity. She remained motionless, breathing with the help of machines, her face serene as if in a peaceful sleep. On the morning of the 16th day, Ethan woke up feeling defeated. He had dreamt of Claire. She was walking away with her back to him, and no matter how fast he ran, he couldn't catch up to her. The dream left a bitter taste of failure. "Aren't we going to the hospital today?" Lily asked when she saw him making breakfast without mentioning their usual visit. "I think we need a break," Ethan replied, avoiding her gaze. "Maybe it's not working, Lily." "What's not working?" "This, our visits, my conversations. Nothing is bringing Claire back." Lily frowned, a determined look on her small face. "Are you giving up?" The straightforward question hit Ethan like a punch. Was he giving up, after all his promises, after finally understanding what Claire meant to him? "I'm not giving up," he said weakly. "I'm just being realistic. The doctors say—" "Doctors don't know everything," Lily interrupted with surprising conviction. "Mrs. Claire wouldn't give up on you." Ethan placed his coffee cup on the table, feeling the weight of that truth in Lily's words. Claire never would have given up. She'd never given up on him, even when he became distant and cold. She had found other ways to express her love, through orphaned children, through small gestures he was only now beginning to appreciate. "I'll take you back to the orphanage," he said finally, "to see Mrs. Martha. You must miss her." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "You're going to leave me there?" The question broke his heart. During these weeks, he hadn't really thought about Lily's future. He'd been focused on Claire, on his own transformation. The girl had become part of his life so naturally that he hadn't considered the possibility of change. "No," Ethan answered firmly. "I'm not leaving you there. I just thought you'd like to visit." Lily studied him for a moment, as though trying to gauge whether he was telling the truth. Finally, she nodded. "Wir safa masil markse." The orphanage looked even more dilapidated in the bright morning light. The broken windows, the peeling paint, everything spoke of neglect and abandonment. How had Claire found beauty here? How had she found purpose amid these ruins? Mrs. Martha greeted them with a tired smile. Ethan noticed she seemed more fragile than she had a couple of weeks before. "How is our Claire?" she asked, after hugging Lily. Ethan lowered his eyes. "No change." Mrs. Martha nodded, as if she expected that answer. "And you're giving up?" It wasn't a question. Ethan wondered if his defeat was so visible, if his face was that easy to read. "I don't know what else to do," he admitted. "I've been talking to her, sharing memories, bringing her meaningful things, but nothing happens." Mrs. Martha invited him to sit at the same kitchen table where they had talked before. Lily went to explore the orphanage, looking for any forgotten toys. "When I was young," Mrs. Martha began, "I loved a man who went off to war. For 3 years, I heard nothing from him. Everyone told me to move on, that he was probably dead. But I felt here," she touched her chest, "that he would come back." Ethan listened, wondering where her story was going. "The day he returned, thin and tired but alive, he told me it was my love that kept him breathing in his darkest moments. That even miles away, he could feel I hadn't given up." She took Ethan's hand in hers, wrinkled and marked by time. "True love is never easy, Ethan. It's never convenient. It demands everything from us, especially when it seems impossible." Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. "What if it's too late? What if I've already wasted too much time?" "It's never too late to love for real," Mrs. Martha said simply. "Claire knows that. It's why she came here, because she believed in the power of love, even in the hardest situations." Ethan pondered those words. Claire had found love among abandoned children, in crumbling walls. She had seen possibility where others only saw despair. Lily returned to the kitchen holding a yellowed drawing. "Look what I found. Mrs. Clare helped me make this. It's the three of us, me, her, and you." Ethan took the paper. It was a child's drawing, 3 stick figures, the middle one with long hair and the other 2, one big, one small, holding hands with the figure in the middle. At the bottom, in Clare's neat handwriting, it said, "Family is where love is." "When did she do this with you?" Ethan asked, voice trembling. "On the last day she came," Lily answered. "She said she was going to bring you here and show you the orphanage. She said maybe we could be a real family." Ethan looked at the simple drawing, then at Lily, and finally at Mrs. Martha. Suddenly, it all made sense. The accident happened the day Clare was finally going to confront him, show him this part of her life, ask him to open his heart to something more than success and money. "I need to go back to the hospital," he said, standing up. "Right now." Clare's room felt brighter when they entered. Maybe it was just the late afternoon sunlight filtering through the window, or maybe it was something else. A shift in Ethan's perspective. He sat down in the familiar chair, took Clare's hand, and placed Lily's drawing on the bedside table, where Clare could see it if she opened her eyes. "I'm here again, honey," he said, "and I'm not giving up. No matter how long it takes, I'll be here waiting. Because I finally understand what you've always known. Love is worth the wait. It's worth the fight. It's worth everything." Lily came closer, and he, without asking, climbed onto the bed to lie next to Clare, being very careful not to disturb any tubes or wires. She rested her head on Clare's shoulder and closed her eyes. "We're here, Mrs. Clare," she whispered. "Your family is here." Ethan felt a peace he hadn't felt in months, even if Clare never woke up, even if he had to live with the consequences of his past mistakes. At least now he understood. Now he could honor what Clare had tried to teach him through her own life. As he watched Lily and Clare, 2 souls so different, yet bound by a love that transcended blood and circumstance, Ethan knew he would never be the same man. And that, perhaps, was the real healing, not just for Clare, but for him too. Weeks turned into months. Summer gave way to fall, and the Clare Hayes Community Center began to take shape. The foundations were set, and the walls rose a bit more each day. Ethan visited the construction site almost daily, often with Lily in tow, checking every detail, suggesting modifications, making sure everything was perfect. At the hospital, the routine went on. Ethan and Lily visited Clare regularly, telling her about the center's progress, sharing little stories from day-to-day life. The doctors had stopped giving pessimistic prognoses, limiting themselves to monitoring vitals and adjusting medications as needed. For them, Clare Hayes had become a stable case, neither improving nor declining, simply existing in a deep sleep. On a particular October afternoon, the sky was exceptionally blue and without a single cloud. Ethan picked Lily up from school. He'd managed to enroll her in a good private institution, although they were still sorting out the legal aspects of her custody. "How was your day?" he asked as Lily got into the car, her backpack almost bigger than she was. "We did a science project," she said excitedly. "We built a volcano that really erupts." Ethan smiled. Lily's transformation over the past months was remarkable. From a scared, distrustful street child, she'd become a bright, curious girl. She still had moments of insecurity, still woke sometimes in the night with nightmares of her past, but she was flourishing. "Shall we visit Clare?" Lily asked, fastening her seatbelt. "Yes," Ethan replied. "I have good news to tell her." On the way to the hospital, he told Lily about his meeting that morning. The board of his company had unanimously approved the creation of a permanent foundation to manage the community center and expand the project to other parts of the city. It was a long-term commitment, not just a one-time gesture. "Does that mean other kids like me will have a place to go?" Lily asked, her eyes shining with hope. "Exactly," Ethan confirmed. "And we'll offer scholarships, medical assistance and support for families in need." Arriving at the hospital, they were greeted by the head nurse, Susan, who had become an ally of sorts over the months. "Mr. Hayes, Lily," she said with a warm smile. "Clare is waiting for you." It was a little joke between them, talking about Clare as if she were conscious, as though she really were waiting. At first, some of the staff found it odd, but over time, Everyone adopted the same attitude. It was more comforting that way. Claire's room had changed over the months. It was no longer the sterile, impersonal space it had been. Fresh flowers were always present. Lily's drawings adorned the walls, and photos of the community center's progress were displayed. Ethan had even brought in a small radio to play Claire's favorite songs at low volume during the day. "Hello, honey," Ethan said, leaning down to kiss Claire's forehead. "We have good news today." Lily climbed onto the chair beside the bed to be taller and took Claire's hand. "Mrs. Clare, I got a perfect score on my spelling test," she announced proudly, "and my volcano was the best in class." Ethan watched the interaction, smiling. This was their routine now, talking to Clare as though she were present, sharing accomplishments, feelings, hopes. The initial tension and sense of loss were gone. What remained was acceptance and, in a way, a new normal. "The foundation was approved," Ethan said, sitting on the edge of the bed and holding Claire's other hand. "We'll be able to help far more children than we ever imagined. Your work at the orphanage will multiply, my love. It'll touch hundreds of lives." As he spoke, he absent-mindedly stroked Claire's hand, a gesture that had become automatic over the months. His fingers traced soft circles on her palm, interlaced with her limp fingers, gently massaged her wrist. "Lily's doing great in school," he went on. "All the teachers are impressed by her intelligence, and Mrs. Martha has been amazing in organizing the center. You'd be so proud to see how she's taken over the project, even with her health issues." Lily, still holding Claire's other hand, leaned in closer. "You know what else, Mrs. Clare? Mr. Ethan doesn't work as much as he used to. He eats dinner with me every night and even learned to make pasta. He's not very good yet, but he's getting better." Ethan laughed. "Thanks for your honesty, Lily." "Mrs. Martha says we should always tell the truth," Lily said seriously. "She's right," Ethan agreed. Then, turning to Clare, he added, "It's strange how everything has changed, isn't it? I always thought I knew what was important, but I was completely wrong. I almost had to lose you to understand." His voice caught with emotion. Even after all these months, it still hurt to think of how blind he had been, how much time he had wasted chasing the wrong things. "But we're building something beautiful now," he said, recovering. "Something that will last far beyond us. And it's all thanks to you, Clare. Your love for the kids at the orphanage, your ability to see past appearances and find possibilities where others only saw problems." Lily, who had slipped off the chair, was now sitting on the bed, still holding Claire's hand firmly. "When you wake up, Mrs. Clare, you're going to love the center," Lily said with the unwavering conviction only children have. "There's a music room and a huge library, and a playground with swings and slides. Mr. Ethan said we can put a fountain in the garden, like the one we saw in the park. And we'll have a mural with stories of hope," Ethan added. "Stories of children who found their way, who overcame difficulties like yours, Lily." The girl grinned, that radiant smile that had become more frequent in recent months. "You know what I want most when the center is ready?" she asked, looking at Clare as if waiting for an answer. "I want us to have a big picnic like the ones you used to have before, with a checkered blanket and sandwiches and lemonade." "We'll do it," Ethan promised, "and we'll invite all the kids and their families. It'll be a huge celebration." As they talked, they kept holding Claire's hands, one on each side of the bed, like a bridge between the past and the future, between what was lost and what might be reclaimed. The afternoon slowly advanced, the autumn sun casting golden shadows through the window. That was when it happened. So subtle that Ethan almost didn't notice, a slight twitch, an almost imperceptible movement of Claire's fingers against his. He froze, terrified it was just his imagination playing a cruel trick on his hope. "Mr. Ethan," Lily's voice sounded confused. "Did you see that?" So it wasn't his imagination, Lily had felt it too. Her hand, she moved her fingers, Lily whispered, eyes wide. Ethan felt his heart pound. This wasn't the first time they'd had hope. There had been false alarms, movements that appeared intentional, but which doctors explained away as involuntary reflexes, with no neurological significance. "Claire," he called, leaning closer. "Claire, can you hear me?" Nothing happened. The room remained silent except for the steady beep of the monitors and Ethan's own rapid breathing. Maybe we imagined it, he finally said, trying to contain his disappointment. But Lily shook her head stubbornly. We didn't imagine it, I felt it. She squeezed my hand. I'm sure. Ethan didn't want to quash Lily's conviction, but he also didn't want to foster false hope. They'd been in limbo for so long, neither completely hopeless nor truly believing in a recovery. Let's call Nurse Susan, he suggested finally. She can check if there's any change in the vitals. Before he could press the call button, though, it happened again. This time, there was no doubt. Claire's fingers curled slightly around his, a definitely intentional movement. Claire, Ethan exclaimed, unable to contain his emotion. You're there, aren't you? You can hear me. Lily jumped off the bed, excited. I'm going to get Nurse Susan. And she ran out of the room. Alone with Claire, Ethan leaned in so close their faces were almost touching. Claire, honey, if you can hear me, try to move your fingers again, please. For an agonizing moment, nothing. Then, slowly, Claire's fingers moved against his once more. It wasn't a strong grip, but it was definitely controlled, definitely conscious. Tears streamed down Ethan's face. After all these months, after all the doubts and despair, that tiny movement meant everything. It was as if an invisible thread was pulling Claire back from the abyss of oblivion. Susan rushed in, followed by Lily and a doctor Ethan didn't recognize. She's responding, Ethan said, his voice trembling. She can squeeze my hand when I ask. The doctor, a neurologist judging by his badge, approached the bed. Mrs. Hayes, can you hear me? He took a small flashlight and checked Claire's pupils. There's a definite pupillary response, he remarked, surprised. And it looks like there's increased brain activity on the monitor. Ethan could barely hear the medical jargon. All that mattered was this newly discovered connection, that fragile thread of communication between him and Claire. Keep talking to her, the neurologist encouraged. Patients in a coma can often hear before regaining other functions. Ethan leaned in again, his tears falling onto Claire's pillow. We're here, honey. Lily and I. We've been waiting for you. There's no rush. We'll be here as long as it takes. Lily carefully climbed back onto the bed so as not to disturb the doctors. Mrs. Claire, we're building a special place for kids like me. Mr. Ethan says it's because of you, because you cared about us. Please come back to see it. The neurologist continued his exams, checking reflexes, monitoring vitals. This is extraordinary, he murmured. I haven't seen many cases like this in my career. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. More doctors were called in, more tests ran. Ethan and Lily were briefly asked to step away from the bed, but they refused to leave the room. They stood in the corner, arms around each other, watching the medical team work, waiting for news, for explanations, for miracles. When they were finally allowed to approach again, the chief neurologist looked cautiously optimistic. Mrs. Hayes is showing signs of emerging from the coma, he explained. I can't promise anything. The brain is complex, and recovery rarely follows a straight path. But these are positive developments. So, what happens now? Ethan asked, holding Lily's hand protectively. Now we wait, the doctor replied. We keep monitoring, stimulating, talking to her. We'll see what happens. After the doctors left, Ethan and Lily took their positions again, one on each side of Claire's bed. The room was calmer now, just the soft sound of music from the radio and the steady beeping of the monitors. Do you think she'll wake up tomorrow? Lily asked, her voice small and hopeful. Ethan smiled gently. I don't know, sweetie. Like the doctor said, these things take time, but she took the first step, and that's what matters. They stayed there until the sun went down, talking to Claire, sharing stories, plans, and dreams. Occasionally, as a precious gift, they felt her fingers squeeze theirs. That silent communication worth more than all the words in the world. When Nurse Susan finally insisted they go home and rest, Ethan leaned down and kissed Claire softly on the lips. We'll be back tomorrow, honey, he promised, and the next day, and every day, until you open your eyes and come back to us, no matter how long it takes. When they left the hospital, the night sky was dotted with stars. Lily looked up, amazed. Mrs. Martha says that when something good happens, it means the angels are smiling, she said. Ethan looked up at the starry sky. I think she's right, Lily. Absolutely right. That night, for the first time in months, Ethan slept deeply. No nightmares, no anguish. In his dreams, Claire smiled at him. That smile that started on the right corner of her lips, as if about to share a secret. And maybe she was. The secret that miracles sometimes happen quietly, in small gestures, in moving fingers, in hearts that reconnect. The miracle of finding the way back home. The waiting area of the Children's Services Department was impersonal and cold. Uncomfortable plastic chairs, faded posters about child safety, and a clock that seemed to move with deliberate slowness. Ethan glanced at the clock for the third time in 5 minutes. Next to him, Claire sat upright, her hands folded neatly in her lap. On the other side, Lily swung her legs nervously, her feet barely reaching the floor. "Is it going to take much longer?" Lily whispered, leaning toward Ethan. "I hope not," he replied, trying to sound confident. In reality, they had been waiting over an hour, and no one seemed to care. It had been 3 months since Claire awoke from her coma. Her recovery, though not complete, had astonished the doctors. The first few weeks were tough: intensive therapy, strenuous exercises, moments of frustration when her body wouldn't respond as it should. But Claire faced it all with a determination Ethan had never seen before. Through every stage, Lily was there. She held Claire's hand during the painful physical therapy sessions. She memorized the speech exercises and patiently practiced them with Claire. She brought light and laughter to the darkest days. The decision to adopt Lily came naturally. Claire brought it up first, one evening, while Ethan was helping her get ready for bed. "We need to talk about Lily," Claire said, her voice still slightly slurred from the coma after effects. "What about her?" Ethan asked, adjusting her pillows. "She needs a family, a real family." Ethan stopped what he was doing and looked at his wife. The old Ethan would have hesitated, calculated risks and complications, found 1,000 reasons to postpone, but he was no longer that man. "Are you thinking about adopting her?" he asked. Claire nodded, her eyes carefully studying his reaction. "I've always wanted to, even before the accident." "I know," he replied simply. And so began the journey that brought them to this uncomfortable waiting room. The process, they quickly discovered, would not be easy. The rich and powerful could often bypass bureaucracy, but when it came to adoption, there were no shortcuts. "Mr. and Mrs. Hayes," a middle-aged woman with thick glasses and a clipboard appeared at the door. "You can come in now." Ethan helped Claire stand. She still used a cane for support, but she insisted on walking on her own whenever possible. Lily hopped off her chair, automatically taking Claire's free hand. The office of the social worker, Ms. Winters, was as impersonal as the waiting area. File cabinets piled high, a dusty artificial plant, and a computer that looked at least a decade old. "Please have a seat," Ms. Winters said, gesturing to the chairs in front of her desk. Once they were settled, she opened a thick folder. "I've been reviewing your case. It's as complex." Ethan felt a knot in his stomach. "Complex in what way?" Ms. Winters adjusted her glasses. "Well, to start with, Lily's legal situation is complicated. She was abandoned as a baby, but there was never a formal relinquishment of parental rights. She was in the system until she ran away." "But that was months ago," Claire interjected, "and no one looked for her. No one cared that a 5-year-old girl was living on the streets." Claire's accusatory tone made Mrs. Winters shrink slightly. "Unfortunately, our system is overwhelmed, and yes, there are serious flaws. But right now, the question is determining what's best for Lily going forward." Lily, sitting between Ethan and Claire, seemed to shrink further with each word, as though bracing for disappointment. "What do we need to do?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice calm, though inside he was furious at the bureaucracy treating a child's future like an administrative problem. "There are forms to fill out. Home assessments, background checks," Ms. Winters began, shuffling her papers. "And of course, we must consider, well, special circumstances." "What special circumstances?" Claire asked, her hand tightening around Lily's. Miss Winters looked uncomfortable. "Your medical condition, Mrs. Hayes. We need to ensure prospective adoptive parents are fully capable of caring for a child." Ethan felt Claire stiffen beside him. My wife is recovering exceptionally well, he said, unable to hide his irritation completely. And we're not alone. We have a support network. I understand, Miss Winters replied, making notes. But protocol requires a complete medical evaluation. The conversation went on for nearly an hour. Questions about finances, educational plans for Lily, work schedules, family support. For every answer they gave, it seemed there were 10 more questions. Ethan could feel hope dwindling by the minute. By the time they left the building, Claire was exhausted, and Lily was unusually quiet. Their driver waited at the curb, holding an umbrella against the light drizzle. In the car, Lily sat huddled against the window, watching the city blurred by the rain. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Claire asked, gently touching her shoulder. Lily didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "You don't have to do this, I know it's hard." Ethan exchanged a pained look with Claire. Even after everything, Lily still expected to be abandoned, discarded the moment she became inconvenient. "Look at me, Lily," Ethan said firmly, waiting until the girl turned her face toward him. "We're not doing this because it's easy. We're doing it because you are our family, and families face challenges together." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "But that lady doesn't think you should be my parents." "That lady doesn't decide our hearts," Claire interjected, her voice gentle but determined. "She just fills out paperwork. We're the ones who decide whom we love, who belongs in our family." When they arrived home, Lily ran to her room, not just a guest room anymore, but a space they had decorated together with bright yellow walls, a bookshelf full of toys and books, and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Claire looked at Ethan, worry evident on her face. "This is going to be harder than we thought." Ethan carefully embraced her, mindful of her continued fragility. "We'll get through it, no matter how long it takes." Later that night, after helping Claire to bed, Ethan went to his home office. There was work piled up, unanswered emails, pending decisions about the community center, which was nearly ready to open. But he couldn't focus. The look on Lily's face during the meeting haunted him, the fear in her eyes, her silent certainty that she'd be rejected again. How could he show her it would be different this time, that he wasn't the man who once put business above relationships and measured worth in dollars instead of smiles? His gaze fell on a stack of boxes in the corner of the office, Claire's belongings, brought from her personal office after the accident. In the chaos of the following months, they had remained untouched, a silent reminder of a life interrupted. Moved by an impulse, Ethan stood and pulled out the first box. Perhaps there was something inside he could show Lily, a reminder that Claire had always cared, that she had always wanted her in their lives. The box contained mostly documents, bank statements, notes on charity events, donation receipts. Ethan flipped through them absently, admiring Claire's meticulous organization. She had always been more orderly than he was, more attuned to details that truly mattered. In the second box, he found something that made his heart pound, a blue folder stamped with the Children's Services Department logo. With slightly trembling hands, he opened it and found partially completed forms. Adoption forms, dated about a month before Claire's accident. She had started the process on her own. She had been considering adopting Lily long before the coma, long before Ethan even knew Lily existed. In the corner of one of the forms was a note in Claire's elegant handwriting. "Talk to Ethan after visiting the orphanage. Show him." Emotion washed over him like a wave. Claire had planned it all. On the day of the accident, she was probably on her way to pick him up so she could finally introduce him to the orphanage. Show him Lily. Share this wish she had kept secret. Continuing to sift through the documents, Ethan found more evidence of Claire's commitment, notes on legal procedures, clippings about adoption, even a pamphlet on how to prepare children for transition to a new family. In a smaller envelope, he found photos. Claire at the orphanage, surrounded by children, and several of just Lily. In one too, Claire and Lily stood side by side, smiling at the camera, their faces glowing with genuine joy. Turning the photo over, Ethan found a handwritten inscription. "My daughter at heart. I just need to convince Ethan. He'll love her too. I'm sure of it." A tear rolled down Ethan's cheek. Claire had believed in him. She'd believed he could open his heart, even when he himself had forgotten how. Gathering the most important documents and the photographs, Ethan headed to Lily's bedroom. He knocked softly. "May I come in?" he asked. "Yes," came a quiet response. Lily was sitting on her bed, hugging a teddy bear Claire had given her at the hospital. Her eyes were red and puffy. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. "I found some things I think you should see." Gently, he showed Lily the documents and photos, explaining what he had discovered. "Claire was already planning to adopt you before the accident. She already considered you part of our family." Lily's eyes widened at the photographs. "She kept these pictures?" "Yes, and much more. She had plans for you, Lily, big plans." Lily touched the inscription on the back of the photo, her fingers tracing the words, "My daughter at heart." "Why didn't she tell me?" Lily asked, her voice small. Ethan sighed. "I think she wanted to be sure first. She wanted me to see the orphanage and meet you myself. Claire always knew some things have to be felt, not just explained." Lily nodded slowly, as if it all made sense. "What if we can't do it? What if that lady says no?" Ethan held Lily's hands in his, looking her in the eye. "Lily, there's one thing I've learned these past few months. When you truly care about someone, you don't give up at the first obstacle, or the second, or the 100th. We'll face any hurdle, fill out any form, convince any social worker, because you're worth every bit of effort." For the first time since the meeting, Lily smiled, a small, shy smile, but real. "Can I show these photos to Mrs. Clare?" she asked. "Of course, first thing tomorrow." When Ethan finally left the room, Lily was asleep, the photographs neatly arranged on her bedside table. He made his way to the bedroom he shared with Claire. To his surprise, she was awake, sitting up in bed with a book. "I thought you were asleep," he said. "I couldn't," Claire replied. "I kept thinking about Lily, about that meeting." Ethan sat beside her and told her about his discovery. Claire listened in silence, her eyes gradually filling with tears. "I'd forgotten about those forms," she admitted when he finished. "So many memories are still hazy." "You were going to take me to the orphanage that day, weren't you?" Ethan asked softly. "The day of the accident." Claire closed her eyes, concentrating. Yes, that was the plan. I'd finally worked up the courage. I was so nervous." Ethan took her hands in his. "I'm sorry you felt you had to work up courage to tell me. I'm sorry I was the kind of husband who made you hesitate to share something so important." Claire opened her eyes, her gaze soft yet direct. "You're not that man anymore, Ethan. Don't blame yourself for the past. Look what we're building now." They fell silent, absorbing the enormity of what they had discovered, of what they had lost and found again. "We're going to do it, aren't we?" Claire asked finally, her voice a mixture of hope and determination. "We're really bringing Lily home for good." Ethan kissed her forehead tenderly. "Yes, we are. Claire, when I think about how I almost lost you, how I found Lily by chance, I can't believe any of this is accidental. It has to mean something." "It means family," Claire replied simply. "It means some bonds are too strong to be broken, even when they seem impossible." That night, Ethan slept with a peace he hadn't felt in a long time. The challenges ahead were huge: relentless bureaucracy, biases to overcome, Lily's fears to soothe. But now there was something stronger guiding them. The certainty that they were only completing a journey Claire had started long ago, the certainty that they were already a family, whether or not any official document said so. And that certainty was all the hope they needed. Morning was exceptionally bright when Ethan woke up. Sunbeams peeked through the curtains, creating golden patterns on the bedroom floor. Next to him, Claire was still asleep, her face peaceful, free of the tension that had accompanied her for so many months of recovery. Ethan allowed himself a few moments to watch her, amazed by how far they'd come. The doorbell rang, interrupting his thoughts. He got up carefully so as not to wake Claire and put on a robe. In the hallway, he found Lily already up, leaving her room. "Good morning," she said, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Who could it be so early?" "I don't know," Ethan answered, checking the time. It was not even 8. "Let's find out." Together they went to the front door. In the foyer, Ethan looked through the peephole and saw a man in a suit holding an envelope. He opened the door cautiously. "Good morning, Mr. Hayes." The man said formally. "I have a delivery for you requiring a signature." Ethan signed the receipt and took the sealed envelope. It was heavy, stamped with the letterhead of an international law firm he recognized immediately. "What is it?" Lily asked curiously as they closed the door. "Not sure yet," Ethan replied, examining the envelope. "Should we have breakfast first? Then I'll see what this is." In the kitchen, Ethan made coffee for himself and hot chocolate for Lily. Toast, eggs and fruit completed the simple breakfast that had become a pleasant ritual. As they ate, they discussed the day's plans. Lily had ballet class in the afternoon, and afterward, they would stop by the Clare Hayes Community Center, which was set to open in just 2 weeks. Claire joined them shortly after, walking without her cane, a recent achievement they celebrated quietly each morning. "Good morning, my loves," she said, bending to kiss Lily on top of the head and then Ethan on the lips. "I saw a delivery man leaving when I looked out the window." "Yes, he left this mysterious envelope," Ethan replied, indicating the package he had placed on the counter. "Aren't you going to open it?" Claire asked, pouring herself some coffee. Ethan shrugged, trying to appear indifferent, but something about that envelope made him uneasy. After breakfast, when they had finished eating, while Claire helped Lily get ready for school, Ethan finally opened the envelope in his office. Inside was a formal letter and a thick contract. As he read, his heart rate quickened. It was a merger proposal. One of the largest financial corporations in the world wanted to acquire his company for a sum that made his current fortune seem modest. The letter detailed the terms. Besides an astronomical payout, they were offering Ethan the position of global CEO in the new combined entity. It was the kind of offer that years ago would have been his ultimate dream: power, prestige, unimaginable wealth. But there was one condition. He would have to move to London for at least 3 years to oversee the corporate integration. 3 years away from home, away from the community center that was about to open, away from Claire, still in recovery, away from Lily, who was finally starting to trust that she had a permanent home. When Claire entered the office a few minutes later, she found Ethan staring out the window, the letter in his hand. "Bad news?" she asked softly. Ethan turned, unable to hide the conflict on his face. "Not exactly. Professionally speaking, it's incredible news." He handed her the letter. Claire read it carefully, her face impassive. Ethan knew her well enough to notice the subtle tension in her shoulders. "It's an amazing opportunity," she said at last, handing the letter back. "You should be proud. Your work is being recognized at the highest level." "But," he prompted, sensing she had more to say. Claire sighed. "There is no but, Ethan. It's your decision. Your career has always been important to you." Something about how she said that unsettled him. Despite everything they had been through, Claire still expected him to choose work over family, and maybe she was right to think that. Hadn't he done exactly that for years? "They gave me 2 weeks to decide," he said. "I have some time to think." Claire nodded and leaned in to kiss his cheek. "Lily's ready for school. I'll take her today if that's okay. I need to stop by the doctor for my routine checkup anyway." "Sure," Ethan answered distractedly. "I'll pick her up afterward and take her to ballet." Left alone, Ethan reread the proposal, trying to absorb what was really on offer. It wasn't just money. It was the culmination of decades of hard work. The chance to lead one of the most powerful financial institutions on the planet. The sort of opportunity that comes along once in a lifetime. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Victor Reynolds, the chairman of the corporation that had made the offer. "Ethan, my friend," the enthusiastic voice boomed, "I assume you got our proposal this morning?" "Yes, I just finished reading it," Ethan replied. "It's quite impressive." "Victor, impressive is an understatement," the man laughed. "It's the biggest offer we've ever made. You've built something extraordinary, and we want you to lead our global expansion. The board is unanimous in backing you." Ethan felt the weight of their expectations. "I need time to think. I have personal commitments here." There was a pause on the other end. "Yes, I heard about your wife's situation. An inspiring recovery story, from what I gather. And there's a child involved too, isn't there?" "Lily," Ethan corrected automatically. "Her name is Lily." "Right, Lily," Victor went on, unfazed. Look, Ethan, we're not insensitive to your family situation. We can provide the best schools in London for the girl, the best doctors for your wife. We have a relocation package that includes a mansion in Kensington. They'd have every comfort imaginable. Ethan looked at a framed photo on his desk. Claire, Lily, and him at the park, all smiling in a perfectly ordinary moment that had become extraordinarily precious. "I'll consider it carefully," he said neutrally. "You'll have my answer before the deadline." After hanging up, Ethan stood motionless for a long time. A year ago, there would have been no doubt. He would have accepted immediately, assuming Claire would just follow him, adapting her life to his career needs as she'd always done. But now, everything was different. The following days were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Ethan went about his routine, meetings about the community centre, finalising Lily's adoption paperwork, Claire's medical visits, but the proposal hovered like a storm cloud. In his office at the company, Robert, his CFO and closest friend, couldn't comprehend his hesitation. "Do you realise what's at stake?" Robert asked, incredulous. "This is the big leagues, Ethan. The global recognition you've always aimed for." "I know exactly what's at stake," Ethan replied calmly. "So what's the problem? Claire and the girl can come with you. London's hardly a hardship posting." Ethan looked out the window at the city he knew so well. "The problem," Robert saw, "is that it's not that simple." "Since when does Ethan Hayes care about simple?" Robert joked. "You built an empire doing what others said was impossible. This is just one more move." But it wasn't just one more move, and Ethan knew it. It was asking Claire to give up her carefully constructed recovery, her doctors, her support system. It was taking Lily away from her new school, where she was finally making friends and feeling secure. It was abandoning the community centre before seeing it fully come to life. When he got home that night, he found Claire and Lily in the living room, surrounded by colourful papers. "What's this?" he asked, setting his briefcase on a side table. "We're making invitations for the community centre's grand opening," Lily said excitedly. "Look, this one's for Mrs. Martha." Ethan picked up the card decorated with stars and hearts, feeling a lump in his throat. Lily's enthusiasm, Claire's careful folding of each invitation. How could he take them away from all this? Later, after Lily was tucked in, Ethan found Claire on the balcony, gazing at the city lights. Without a word, he sat beside her. "You're thinking about the proposal," she stated, not as a question but as a fact. "How do you know?" She offered a small smile. "I know that look. It's the same one you had when deciding whether to start your own company, part determination, part fear." Ethan took her hand. "Claire, what do you think about it? Honestly." She took a moment to consider. "I think it's an extraordinary opportunity for you, the kind of recognition you've always deserved." "But," he pressed. "But I'm afraid," Claire admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, "afraid that London will become what your company was here, something that consumes you entirely. Afraid Lily, who's already lost so much, will lose the stability we're building. And selfishly, afraid I'll lose this new version of you I've rediscovered." Her honesty cut deep. She had put into words the fears Ethan himself could hardly articulate. "I want you to know, whatever decision you make, I'll support you," she continued. "I always knew who you were when I married you. Ambitious, driven, brilliant. I'd never ask you to change that." "But I have changed," Ethan said softly. "Or at least, I'm trying to." Claire smiled, her eyes glistening with tears she held back. "Yes, you have, which is why I know you'll make the right choice, whatever it may be." The next morning, Ethan woke before sunrise. Carefully, he slipped out of bed so as not to wake Claire and dressed for a run, a habit he'd picked up again during her recovery, finding that exercise cleared his mind. The streets were almost empty at that hour, just a few early workers and occasional fellow runners. Ethan jogged aimlessly at first, letting his feet carry him while his mind churned. Without realizing it, he ended up in front of St. Hope Orphanage. The old building still stood there in stark contrast to the modern structure of the nearly completed community centre next door. He stopped, breathing heavily, taking it all in. This was where everything had started, where Claire had found purpose while he amassed wealth, where Lily had lost her first family and, in a way, found her second. "I thought I'd find you here," said a voice behind him. Ethan turned, surprised to see Mrs. Martha walking slowly toward him, leaning on her cane. "Mrs. Martha, what are you doing here so early?" The older woman smiled. "Old habits. I wake with the birds, always have. And I like watching the sunrise over the center. Feels like a miracle every morning." Ethan looked at the building again, trying to see it through her eyes. "Yes, I suppose it does." "So," Mrs. Martha began, with her characteristic bluntness. "I heard about the offer in London." Ethan raised his eyebrows. "Claire told you?" "Claire didn't have to." "News like that travels fast in certain circles, and you, young man, are about to become a legend in the financial world, if you accept, of course." They walked slowly, side by side, the older woman with her cane, Ethan matching her pace. "It's hard to turn down," he admitted eventually. "Of course it is," Mrs. Martha agreed. "Offers like that are designed to be irresistible. That's how they get you." "Get me?" "Yes. They make you think you have no real choice, that you'd be crazy to say no. That's how they separate people from what really matters." Ethan thought about her words. "I would have said yes without blinking a year ago. You were a different man a year ago. What if I'm throwing away the opportunity of a lifetime?" he asked, finally voicing his greatest fear. Mrs. Martha stopped, turning to look at him. Her eyes, framed by deep wrinkles, were startlingly clear. "Ethan, you've already built a fortune that will last generations. You've achieved more than most men ever dream of. The question isn't whether you're throwing away an opportunity. The question is, what kind of opportunity matters most to you now?" They sat on a nearby bench, watching the sky as it turned shades of pink and gold. "Do you know what Claire told me when she started to recover?" Mrs. Martha continued. "She said that during the coma, sometimes she could hear voices, couldn't understand the words, but she recognized the feelings. And what brought her back, what made her fight, wasn't talk of medical treatments or business deals. It was the sound of you and Lily laughing together. It was the feeling of being loved, not for your money or status, but for who she was." Her words hit Ethan hard. He remembered the afternoons in the hospital, how Lily would tell Claire stories, how he'd learned to speak of his vulnerabilities, his fears, his love. "I think I already know my answer," he said softly. Mrs. Martha smiled. "I think you've known for a while, dear. You just needed time to accept it." The next afternoon, Ethan called a meeting with his board of directors. Seated around the long mahogany table in his office, the executives observed him with curiosity and apprehension. "I've received a merger proposal from Reynolds Global," he began, always direct. "An exceptional offer, which includes my relocation to London as global CEO." Murmurs of approval spread through the room. Robert S. at the far end of the table looked particularly pleased. "After careful consideration," Ethan continued, "I've decided to turn down the offer." A stunned silence fell over the room. "Turn it down," Robert repeated, incredulous. "Ethan, we're talking about billions, the most coveted position in the financial market." "I'm aware," Ethan replied calmly, "but my decision is final. Our company will stay independent, and will implement the 5-year plan we discussed last month, focusing on socially responsible investments and expanding our charitable foundation." The hours that followed were filled with heated arguments, attempts to change his mind, even veiled threats from some board members. But Ethan remained unshakable. When the meeting finally ended, it was already night. Exhausted but strangely at peace, Ethan drove home. In the apartment, he found Claire and Lily in the kitchen, preparing dinner together. The sight, Claire carefully showing Lily how to chop vegetables, both laughing at some private joke, confirmed what he already knew in his heart. "Papa!" Lily exclaimed, running to hug him as soon as she saw him. The affectionate term she'd recently started using still filled him with indescribable joy. "Hey, princess," he replied, lifting her into his arms. "I missed you today." Claire approached, giving him a light kiss. "All okay?" she asked, noticing the tired lines on his face. "All great," he said honestly. "Actually, I have news." They sat around the kitchen table, and Ethan told them about his decision. Lily listened intently, not fully grasping the implications. Claire, however, understood perfectly. "Are you sure?" she asked, her eyes searching his. "It's a huge sacrifice." Ethan shook his head. "It's not a sacrifice, Claire. It's a choice. The right choice. In fact, the only choice." Later, after dinner, after putting Lily to bed, after all the newly treasured domestic routines, Ethan sat with Claire on the balcony, just like the night before. But this time, the weight on his shoulders was gone. "You know what I realized today?" he asked, gazing at the stars above the lit-up city. "What? That I've spent half my life chasing the kind of success measured by bank balances or resumes, and somehow, without noticing, I found a different kind of success, one measured in smiles, little moments of joy, a sense of belonging." Claire rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you, Ethan, not just for the decision, but for the man you've become. The man I always knew was underneath that ruthless executive facade." "I had a good teacher," he replied, kissing the top of her head. 2 weeks later, the Clare Hayes Community Center held its official grand opening. The sun shone in a cloudless sky, as if nature itself was celebrating the moment. The spacious courtyard was decorated with colorful ribbons and balloons. Children of all ages ran around excitedly, exploring the new playground, the library, the tech-equipped classrooms. Parents and guardians mingled in small groups, some visibly moved by the opportunities unfolding. In the center of the courtyard, a small platform had been set up. Ethan climbed it, followed by Claire, still walking with a slight limp, and Lily wearing her favorite blue dress for the special occasion. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan began, his voice amplified by the microphone. "Welcome to the official opening of the Clare Hayes Community Center." Enthusiastic applause echoed through the courtyard. "This center was born out of a promise," he continued, "a promise Claire made long ago, that no child should grow up without opportunities, without affection, without hope. What you see today is just the beginning. We plan to replicate this model in other neighborhoods, other cities, creating a network of support for children and families who need a second chance." Claire stepped forward. Her recovery had been remarkable, though the doctors said some after effects would remain. But in that moment, standing in the sunlight with Lily at her side, she looked radiant. "When I first started volunteering at the old orphanage," she said, gesturing toward the Victorian building next door, "I never imagined we'd get here. Every child I met taught me something about courage, resilience, and the human capacity to find joy in the hardest circumstances." Her gaze met Lily's, who smiled shyly. "One child in particular changed our lives forever. Lily, you not only brought light to our family, but you inspired all of this." Usually so outspoken, Lily seemed at a loss for words. Ethan crouched to her level. "Want to say something?" he asked gently. Lily shook her head, then changed her mind and stepped closer to the microphone. "I just wanted to say thank you for finding me, and for letting me find you." There wasn't a dry eye in the courtyard after those simple words. When the formal ceremony ended and the real celebration began, with music, food, and games, Ethan found a moment to step back. He watched from a distance as Claire, seated on a bench, chatted animatedly with Mrs. Martha. Lily had found some friends from her new school and was racing around the playground, her laughter blending with the other children's. A feeling of fulfillment, so different from the success he once imagined, filled his chest. Not just happiness, but purpose, belonging, the certainty he was exactly where he should be. His phone vibrated in his pocket. A message from Victor Reynolds. "Your decision was a surprise. Our offer still stands if you change your mind. London can wait." Ethan smiled slightly and slipped the phone back without replying. He would not reconsider. The choice had been made, the bonds strengthened, the path set. As he walked back toward his family, the wife he had almost lost, the daughter fate had brought them, Ethan Hayes felt the final fragment of his old self fall away. The cold, calculating man who once put business above everything else was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood the value of a genuine smile, of a tight hug, of a tiny hand holding his. Lily saw him approaching and ran to meet him. "Dad, come see what we found." She took his hand, tugging it eagerly. Ethan let her lead him, smiling at Claire from a distance. Her smile, the one that started on the right corner and spread slowly, as if about to share a secret, was all he needed to know. They had finally found the home they'd always searched for, not in a place, but in each other. The broken smile had been mended, stronger at the cracks, brighter for the shadows they had faced together. And as Lily excitedly explained her discovery, as Claire joined them, her arm slipping around Ethan's waist, a new chapter began. Not one of loneliness and ambition, but of connection, purpose, and true love.